The point is, I've been very much looking forward to this evening's presentations. And to that end, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, that is Ms. Lorraine McCallum. Ms. McCallum is formerly the executive director of the deVeber Institute, still very much working with the Institute, and a mother of 3. Ms. McCallum was diagnosed with multiple myeloma just days after the birth of her 3rd daughter. And so she takes us immediately from the theoretical to the practical. She is a stem cell recipient. Multiple myeloma is a cancer of the plasma cells in the bone marrow. And at this time, the standard treatment, and I emphasize the word treatment because this is a disease that at this point has no cure. Standard treatment is to use the patient's own stem cells for transplantation. So tonight, Ms. McCallum will take us through the realities of stem cell transplant, talking about her cancer diagnosis, her experience of having an adult stem cell transplant, and the progress that she's made since her diagnosis. Please welcome Ms. Lorraine McCallum.
Well, I'm so glad to see you all here tonight. When Martha and Kathy first approached me with the idea of doing this, I said, no way. But I am actually kind of glad to be here talking to you about this today, and I hope I have something to contribute to the discussion. Can you all hear me well enough? It's good? Okay, thank you. So in 2008, a few days after giving birth to my last daughter, I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is a cancer I had never heard of. But it is commonly referred to as a cancer of the plasma cells, but it's a blood cancer that affects the bones. It's very destructive, especially in the spine, and it compromises the whole immune system. So I went immediately into treatment. I had radiation, I had chemotherapy, I had spinal surgery, actually from one of Dr. Fehlings' colleagues on my spine. And then I had a stem cell transplant with my own stem cells, which is called an autologous stem cell transplant. I'm not entirely sure why that works, but it does. Because with multiple myeloma, they don't really know where it starts in the body or what triggers it. But stem cell transplants are standard treatment for people with my cancer, and it is very effective, at least for a while, at holding the cancer at bay. So I'm going to just take you through what it's like going through a stem cell transplant, because it's actually a pretty big deal in a lot of ways. It's not particularly painful or intrusive, but it started with, first of all, the cancer had to be brought down through the previous treatments to a very low level in my system before they could go ahead with the transplant. I was given a drug to kind of hyperstimulate the production of stem cells in my body. And then those were filtered out of my blood. I was hooked up to a tube here that took blood out of my system. The stem cells were filtered out, and then the blood was put back into my body. That took several hours. That was immediately frozen and sent ahead to the hospital. And then I went to the hospital. So a stem cell transplant in the context of this, and it'd be interesting to compare this to what the 2 doctors are going to talk about today, essentially reboots the immune system. So when I went into the hospital, I was in a special section of the hospital that was particularly for people who are at risk of infection. They gave me a drug that essentially, and I'm not a scientist, so I'm probably not going to use the precise words for this, but it essentially destroyed my existing stem cells and bone marrow. So my immune system was essentially decimated, brought down to 0. And then my own stem cells were reintroduced back into my system. Now, the main advantage, of course, of using my own stem cells is that you don't have the risk of donor, of the host rejection. And I understand that for multiple myeloma patients in particular, that is quite a high risk. So I was given my own stem cells back, and then it's kind of like planting a garden. Those stem cells were reseeding themselves in my body and needed a chance to grow. So my immune system was getting back up to a more normal level. And then once I was finished that, I was able to leave the hospital. So that whole process took me just under 3 weeks, because I was fortunate to not get another infection, which is very common, not just because, well, you can imagine if your immune system is way down here, what a common cold virus might do to you. But also, your own body carries a lot of organisms and things that normally aren't a problem at all, but when your system is down like that, you can get infections from yourself. But I was very fortunate, so I got out quickly, and I hope to never have to repeat it. But I do have stem cells banked in case I do. And then I had to get new vaccinations because I had a whole new immune system. And here I am today, and my all the indicators in my immune system, the IgGs and things like that, which I don't really understand, but many of you probably do, are way back up to normal at the moment. So I'm very happy to lead this off, and Barry. So that was in 2009, about 3 years ago. No. So I'd love to lead into the next speaker.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. That was just wonderful, and it's wonderful for you to be here on several levels. Thank you.